Hey everyone, well, try to make this video short. We're talking about dark things connected to conspiracy, stuff that are coming out true, a lot of these things. Now we're going to talk about the bad side of technology that's being used, a really dark side. That's connected to a lot of operations, even connected to Trump, to billionaires. It's the mass migration of billionaires into the United States. Underneath Trump, underneath Putin, they're going into Russia. From China, billionaires going into Russia. Different parts of the Middle East, billionaires. And what's really happening behind the scenes is a deprogramming. We're talking about these powerful elites, these powerful, really dark stuff of these rituals, these secret empire rituals in the recent decades. Inside of these rituals, they were giving shots to these different elites, these powerful people at these powerful parties, that they were giving them a shot. It's kind of a little bit like the vax. Kind of, I'm saying that it didn't have the death stuff in there. It had more of the mRNA technology that was inside of it, the nanotechnology that was inside of it. So a lot of powerful people, elite families, like I said, billionaires, millionaires, inside of these secret societies. Some people were forced into it, blackmailed into it. They had to take these shots, a lot of them. Some of them, they were kind of tricked a little bit to say, okay, we're going to give you this shot a little bit direct. It's not going to hurt you, but, it could be used for, say, for sex. That, they were giving them a lot of stuff to make sure that they took the shot. They didn't want to tell them about the mRNA. They were saying many things like this shot is going to keep you alive for, decades. It's going to make you immune to the viruses in the world that's going to be coming. It's going to protect you. But they didn't tell these elites that took these shots. They didn't tell these powerful people that there's mRNA inside of it. They wouldn't have understood it. There's nanotechnology inside of it. There's other technology that's inside of those shots that they were given. What I'm trying to get at really is that I told you that in Iran, people are hearing voices. People are seeing images of Jesus. Different countries inside of China that isn't reported, people are hearing voices. People are seeing different things, different entities, seeing different stuff in the skies. So all over the world in different places that this has been taking place, especially since the pandemic, since the vaccines. People have died from the vaccines. A lot of stuff, and then a lot of other people have been hearing voices. Now we'll get back a little bit to Iran, is that for the first time in history, there's a mass migration from the Muslim community going into Christianity. Like I said, something like over 50,000 mosques have closed inside of Iran, and that's more than half. It's almost 2/3 of all the mosques have closed. But recently, in the past months, People have been hearing voices, not only there, but also in Israel, also in the neighboring countries inside of Jordan, inside of different places in the Middle East directly. People have been hearing voices, having visions. Some people have been getting sick. And this is going on. So I'm trying to bring this out in a certain way that you can understand it. I did a video last year on Project Bluebeam. And then the projects that are really underneath it. You know, we always say that Project Bluebeam isn't the real name, but there are military operations connected to that, dating all the way back to Wernher von Braun, connected to people who came from World War II, creating NASA, creating DARPA, and then all the projects that create an alien invasion, you know, a global threat, whether it's going to be asteroids, something coming from the sky, or alien invasion. And then the technology that they wanted to use inside of this alien invasion, I gave that information. It was connected to satellites, connected to different telecommunication systems, connected to 5G and then the 6G. And the way that they wanted to project Project Bluebeam for the far distant, not so far distant future, I'm sorry, but in the stages that Project Bluebeam would be initiated was that that there would be kind of like a war to take place inside of the world. And then while the war was taking place, they would bring out the aliens. And then eventually they would show that there was a global threat that the whole world has to come together. Once the whole world comes together, they see that there's aliens, there's powerful demons, demonic aliens, and the only way to save society really is to unite together. But in this time, they would have explosions throughout the world. You would see it on TV, the news stations. And then in this time, there would be people dying from something having to do with the aliens. Something really strange. So in order to combat that humans have to take, people have to take another, some other vaccines. Whatever was going on, they had a plan, whether you take vaccines or whether they were going to use 5G, 6Gs. Those frequencies that move through the air that creates transmissions of the internet, all of these frequencies that move around you, things that you can hear into your ears inside of ear pods, headphones, just all of this technology that can shift your ideas, your mind to the stuff that you hear. It changes your vibrations. If you're hearing a good song, you can dance. Hear something sad, you can feel that pain. No matter if you're in traffic, if you're walking, it shifts your vibration, those energy, those frequencies, those sound frequencies. Now, for a long time, they had a lot of different projects that was classified. And inside of those classified projects, they were moving frequencies through the air, and those frequencies were affecting the brain. And those different frequencies, they were using it to create voices inside of humans, or else to get them sick, or else in powerful moments it was letting people, create visions, things that they could see. So that was a large projects of what people call Project Bluebeam, the alien invasion, DARPA, all of these cabal state stuff of what they really wanted to do. Control humans, control human consciousness. And in the end, that was a large project to unite the world together underneath an alien threat. And then for people to actually experience it, through sound, that there's aliens, people getting sick and using all of their different senses to kind of let humans attack themselves with all of their own senses being used against them. And they had other projects connected to that to eventually erasing the mind, eventually humans taking more vaccines, more people, even adults beginning to lose, all of their memories, sort of like in a way where people have mental issues that come full on really fast, and they would say it's connected to the aliens, what happened to humans. And then a generation would go by like 2040, people would die really, really quickly. A lot of people throughout the world, we're talking about more than half of the population, because in that time, the original plan was to create almost world war, lots of wars, then lots of vaccines, pandemic, people dying. And then in the moment of nuclear events, they would also bring in the aliens. And while the aliens came in, then people would be killed with super weapons. And in the end, they just want a population like of about 1 billion people. 500 million to 1 billion people is what they were really planning. And then by the time 2040 came, their idea was that a new generation would be born. These young kids who went through this. Now these young kids have taken different things into their body of different technology, connected to mRNA, nanotechnology, different technology. And then at the same time, they would be erasing human minds, this young generation. And then after 2040, you would have a world where it was controlled by globalist operations. And those globalist operations would bring in a new God, a new reality, a different dimension to a whole different new history being born underneath of the satanic operations. And those satanic operations included controlling complete human civilizations, the people that are left. And inside of controlling them, they could control humans completely. The birth rate, where the children go when they're born, how children are raised directly by the government systems, and how those operations of the control over humanity would allow these pedo operations to be legal, the selling of children to be legal, connected to the killing of this that would be legal, inside of different rituals. Everything would just be completely satanic, be completely open. And that generation would absolutely allow it, thinking that that was part of the design of the gods, connected to designs of a new alien god, because they're actually hearing it, they're seeing it, they've seen the devastation. So that's how powerful these projects were, what they were planning. And that's why there was a huge, gigantic cabal state for thousands of years, controlling governments, controlling what was really, really happening behind the scenes with the military, human trafficking, the states we're in. Not only one Epstein, but there's an Epstein in every country. There's operations in every country to ensure blackmail, to ensure that they can control a lot of different powerful people that's connected to creating laws and so on and so on. And their eventual project was to keep pushing the pandemic, to keep pushing that. And then, like I said, all of these different operations through the pandemic. Now, what's happening is 2012, there's a shift in the world that actually happens, a powerful shift that happens. There's a powerful consciousness that enters the world. That consciousness, what consciousness is connected to it's connected to an invisible force, a powerful energy that exists. And that powerful force, that energy, the divine energy, it begins to change certain operations behind the scenes. You heard me explain it in many different forms. These different forms of the 17 operations connected to supercomputers, connected to advanced intelligent operations, connected to living light angels, super living advanced living plasma energy. So, these are all technical names, to when people talk about all of electrical frequencies, people get a little confused, and other people think they know everything. The difference between Tesla energy, infinite energy, electrogravitic energy, plasma energy, fusion energy, all of these different, even electricity. People think they know about these, but their names, the real states of how these energies are created, it connects all the way back to what people might call the source, the divine energy that creates the whole infinite universe, every size, every sound, every structure of the whole universe, every dimension. There's a powerful energy that's creating everything, that it kind of works together. So that energy source comes in 2012 in a certain way that it becomes a source point for the United States military to work with these 17 light plasma energy and the technology that comes into this dimension. And it's working with the United States military. I know you're going to have a lot of questions about what I just said. I know there's a lot of questions about that, but we can't dive into detail because I've already talked about this a lot of time, of how God has created a whole universe and how God, the source, creates also free will. But at the same time, God is also experiencing a powerful journey through the plants, through the sunlight, through every human. It's experiencing a powerful divine journey within itself, testing itself, because God knows that God wins, because everything is infinite forever. It exists. There is no death of the spirit, and everything is connected to this powerful illusion of magnificent energy that people call God, that people can't understand what God is. Then at the same time, what people call the simulation, or what people call quantum energy, infinite fields of energy. So even other people who don't believe in God, don't believe in the simulation, but they believe that there is a divine, a spiritual energy that I would rather say that exists in them, within themselves, that is connected to everything. And they just call it spirit, and they don't want to use the word God, because God sometimes it creates an idea of control. It creates an idea of force religion, form religion, control religion. So a lot of younger generations try to break away from using that word. So we're not going to get into that. I just gave you a little bit of point on that subject. So getting back to this is that this powerful energy, the United States military starts using it. And it starts changing timelines. It starts switching what the cabal states were doing for thousands of years, hundreds of years, decades before, all the way back to NASA, DARPA, controlling a lot of operations connected to a lot of technology that they wanted to use against humans. And those projects of a fake alien invasion, mRNA, mind control, sound control, radio frequency, radio waves, mind control, and connected to so many other things. But so what happens is that United States military get the technology, a living light, plasma energy technology, and they start initiating storm operations around the world. They start uniting everybody slowly, from Putin to Xi to the powerful countries. And they're going to have a plan to collapse the deep state empires, the deep state operations. And it's a huge, gigantic, massive plan that's going to take place, take shape, military operations. So a lot of these operations, we're giving you the information on this all the way up to now, telling you everything slowly, that Musk was going to unite with Trump, that the whole thing was set up. Trump never lost power. Trump has always been the president. I tried to give you real enlightenment of why Trump is with Israel. It's not how people think that he's being controlled or all of these different things. It's a much huger context of why Trump is working with good people of Israel. And then also, in a certain way, Trump running military operations, how can you say, like, for example, inside of like World War II, you had the Nazis and you had the Americans fighting. But behind the scenes, there were certain Nazis, certain commanders, generals, they were working with white hats. They were working with the, they were working with the United States. They were facilitating operations behind the scenes to help bring down the Nazis. Now, these people who were double agents working for the United States behind the scenes, they just can't, say, okay, we're going to stop the Nazis. Let's just go arrest the Nazis. Let's just go do this, because there is a huger, broader, gigantic plan that's coming forward. And these people, these Nazis that were working with the United States military operations behind the scenes, they can't just run out into the streets and tell everybody, you're arrested, we're going to arrest you, and they're the only one there. There's a few of them. Because obviously he would have been killed. He would have been obviously been captured, those operations. So eventually, the Nazi operations collapse. United States military goes in there. And a lot of these certain Nazis, some of them, they were given freedom. Their names were never released. They were hidden, taken into the United States. These are different projects than the stuff you hear about, Operation Paperclip and stuff like that. So we're talking about infiltration, why it takes a long time, why things like that had to happen in a certain way. You have to think about Trump like that. Trump has infiltrated deeply into these operations of Israel, because you have to understand that Israel was deeply a part of a lot of projects through the Rothschilds, Orsini family, connected to the royal families, the UK, the Operations UK, the old operations, that was running New World operations, even things dating back all the way back to how Britain took over certain countries, over their financial institutions, their government systems.
Join our Patreon or Spotify channel and get the real weekly updates.
So it's gigantic, the operations of these Khazarians who became the Ashkenazis, infiltrating the Jesuits, infiltrating the Catholic system through the Jesuits, being part of this Britain Empire, because like I said, King Charles, the bloodline coming from Germany, this goes all the way back to the Khazars, connects all the way back to the infiltration of people inside of Bavaria, inside of southern Germany, that was connected over to this Khazar Empire. So this huge, crazy stuff, these historical events that kind of helped shape what happened with the Illuminati, the Jesuits, the 33rd degree Masons, secret societies that worked together to facilitate the operations to create the United Nations, to create World War I, to create World War II, eventually creating Israel. And then Israel becoming this huge, gigantic financial hub of money laundering operations. And then all the different operations inside of the Middle East, because oil is going to be discovered. And then all of these countries, their GDP, the money that they were getting, because a lot of these projects are going to be connected. A lot of oil companies up to Europe, all the way up into Britain. They're going to be stealing a lot of money, and they need a place to put that money. Whether it's in the Vatican, it's in Switzerland, it's up in the banks over of London. They're going to be taking this money and they're going to be running operations, facilitating it back to a lot of these operations of the J people, that's connected to the Zion operations. And eventually those Zion operations is going to grow huge, massive. It's going to grow into projects of BlackRocks and projects of World Banks, projects of the BIS. It's going to connect to different operations from China all the way through the Middle East, all the way back to the United States and the World Banks. It's going to be gigantic. So Trump military infiltrates these operations of the dark side of Israel, the dark side, because you just can't go in there and just bring down and just arrest all the people inside of, whether it's in Israel, the United States. If you do something like that and just went on a arresting spree, it would cause civil wars in so much different countries. It's huge what would really happen with that, because they had all the ledgers, they had all the information, all the data, and all the deep state people in every country. And they would ensure that they would use terrorist attacks. They would bring out so much evidence against oppositions in every country, use all the news stations to create propaganda to ensure that there would be race wars. And people would actually get arrested on the good side, because the judges, the police, all the way up to the government sectors would run these operations underneath the globalist operations, the Khazar operations, what people call the deep state, all of these things. They would initiate operations to ensure immediately that there would be a huge, gigantic backlash inside of these countries. So the military can't just go around arresting people, just to go in there and just arrest them all. They have protocols. We're talking about the whole world, right? We're talking about all of these different operations of things that they control, the government, the sectors, television, newspapers, social media, to the banks, to government officials. It's gigantic, the stuff that you're even seeing with Epstein. How huge it is, the blackmail, connected to kings, queens, connected to governments, connected to intelligent agencies, connected to Satanism. It's huge, it's gigantic, it's massive. So the military had to go in a certain way, infiltration, and to bring down the operations. That's why 17Q was talking about Israel is safe for last. Those operations are really important, but it's actually taken place already in a certain way. There's infiltration of what Trump is doing, what the military is doing, to capture the full operations that's connected to Palantir, connected to BlackRock, connected to the World Banks, connected to the BIS, connected to their full infrastructure all the way around the world. That's what the storm operations is about, is capturing all of those operations. So everything has to be done in stages. And that's why I'm telling you, like, it's huge. It's big. People are so worried about Trump that he's infiltrated. He's being controlled by the Jewish people, by the dark side of it, that he's being controlled, by the Ashkenazi. They're all around him. You heard people even like Stu Peters give he gave so much evidence that Trump is absolutely infiltrated, that Trump is a bad person. Trump is like this. Here's the proof. And he gives a huge, gigantic, deep dive. But he never tells you about military operations behind the scenes. He never tells you about the spiritual side of how the spirit, the energy, can change the forces of the dark forces. More or less does he talk about technology. He doesn't know anything about super advanced technology, what's happening behind the scenes that's connected to different spiritual frequencies, energies, infinite energy, Tesla energy, divine energy. So Stu Peter doesn't talk about that. That's what I told you is the bad thing about journalism, is they only give you the facts that they can find. Unfortunately, there's not facts that you're going to find on God. What God is doing, what God did yesterday, what he's doing tomorrow, what God's real plan is. You're not going to find a fact, so people can't do journalism on something like that. People can't do journalism on something that's, say, connected to spirits, connected to energy, real facts. They can give you an idea. Say somebody had a spiritual experience, somebody saw ghosts, but they can't give you facts. They can't give you facts on military operations taking place behind the scenes. They can't give you the facts because it's classified, because nobody knows about that. A lot of people, 99.9999%, nobody knows about that. They can't give you facts on a lot of things. A journalist can only give you facts on the stuff they can uncover, the things that they can see. And when you find something like this, then you only see the dark side of a lot of things. So unfortunately for Stu Peters, he's a really great in-depth reporter, but he doesn't know anything about a lot of these operations that we're talking about. Everything that we talked about that came true. A lot of things that I said was going to happen, that keeps on evolving, keeps on happening. And these things where there's no facts, but you have people from the inside telling you, giving you drops, giving you comms, giving you information. This is an important video because we're talking about operations connected to what people might call diffused artificial thought. Diffused artificial thought, these projects, was being able to control humans with technology, to control the thoughts. And those operations connected over to DARPA, connected to all of these different frequency waves that I was telling you about. Now, you're hearing about people, like I said, in Iran, hearing voices. People are seeing Jesus. People are switching over from something they believed in for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years into a religion, and they're flipping over. But it's happening in a lot of different places. So right now, you're going to start hearing about intelligent agencies intentionally taking a shot, and that shot was laced with mRNA nanotechnology. These intelligent agencies You know, in the old days, you had little microchips that were hidden, maybe a magical camera that was a bow tie. You had all of this James Bond kind of gadgets, okay? That's old technology. The new technology that they had, it had to do with this diffuse artificial technology connected to controlling thoughts. And inside of that was that they were giving each other shots. From MI6 to Mossad to CIA to people around different parts of the world. And the reason why they were doing that is because they were using these frequencies. The original bands of 5G frequencies was being used for a long time. When you hear about something, they say, okay, we're going to roll out the 5Gs. It's 2019. We're going to go ahead and roll this out 2020. It was already out a long time ago. The military were using this for different weapons, even using it for sonic weapons. They were using it for frequency weapons. They were using it, things that's connected over to the Havana syndrome, where people could hear voices, where people could get sick through a lot of this stuff. 5Gs was originally a weapon, a powerful sound weapon, frequency weapon, direct energy weapon. That's what 5G really was in the beginning. So going back to this, that agents, MI6, Mossad, they were taking this injection and the mRNA was going in the body. The nanotechnology was going in the body. There's a classified liquid that was going into the body, and it was acting like a gel that gets stuck inside the central nervous system, inside different parts that controls the ears. It controls different parts of the senses, but inside of the central nervous system, that gel collects the nanotechnology inside of it and the stuff that's more classified into the mRNA stuff. Now, what they were doing are these agents, they were speaking through telepathy with each other. They were learning to communicate. That way, different spies, different people, you know, there won't be no evidence that they were spies if they got captured. And they were trying to look in their computers, trying to look in their phones. There's no evidence and no traces that these spies, that they are spies, that they are moving information. There's nothing on the internet. All their resources, there's nothing that they have. That's because everything was stored in their mind and they were moving that information through telepathy. So some people call this synthetic telepathy. It's actually synthetic. Now what's happening is different agents from around the world, they want to sue the government because of that stuff that they took, that technology jab, because they're being killed and it's being used against them, because a lot of them became sick from it. They got tired of hearing stuff. They were going insane from it, and they want to get out of this. So a story is kind of coming out even from MI6 that people, you know, want to step forward, and they are in this moment trying to sue the government because they were injected with this technology and it was being used against them. Because if these agents decide no longer to work with the government, no longer they don't want to be part of this project, now they use that technology that's inside them already to kill them, you know, to hear voices, you know, to see things, have visions. And they go into insanity. Some of them kill themselves. Some of them go insane. So there are a few of them now that are speaking out, and there's whistleblowers that's going to come forward on that. So this is what's out there now, talking about these operations. Trump bringing in billionaires from around the world, mass migration. Putin, mass migration of billionaires secretly from the UK, different parts of Europe, going into Russia. They're going through deprogramming operations. Deprogramming means that those secret parties like Eyes Wide Shut, that movie, these secret satanic parties where they were being tricked into taking this, and taking a serum, because they were tricking them, saying, well, we're going to give you this serum because it's going to protect you. You'll never get sick again. This is the secret that we have. Whatever they were lying to them about. Or some of them, they said, we're going to give you this serum because with this serum, it's the secret that you can hear the God voices. It'll give you the information. So people were tricked into this for many different things. Now, inside of this elite societies around the world, and these cabal parties, whatever, they took that serum and they began to hear voices. They began to have visions. They began to have telepathy, communicate in a certain way. But then it became darker and darker. And eventually they saw the killings. They saw the dark side of it. And a lot of them didn't know it was going that far. Just like the movie Eyes Wide Shut. He didn't know how far it was going to go, that story, that darkness. A lot of people don't know how far it's going to go. Young kids rapping about the devil, talking about the devil, making rock and roll music about the devil, living a dark life. It sounds cool. So people do this, but they don't understand how deep those tunnels go, how dark those energy forces actually are. So not only kids not understanding what they're doing, teenagers not understanding what they're worshiping, what they're creating, what they're doing, but also billionaires, very elite people, not really understanding these parties that they go to, and then the next secret party behind it, and then going higher slowly up into a chain of secret societies, eventually coming into the cabal states, taking these serum, seeing the really dark, atrocious stuff of the sacrifices, the killings, the dark, dark stuff, and they're scared to come out. Their families are threatened. They're seeing all the killings, and they're trying to come out. Now they have this coding of this shot that they took, and they're seeing visions. So now with USSF operations that's connected over to this thing that's called Red Sky, Blue Sky event. Inside of those operations also, it's about decoding, where people are being decoded, where people, those operations of the nanotechnology, certain things, in a way, it's getting rid of all of this stuff inside of them, what's inside their brain, inside their mind, connected to that stuff. So that's what's happening to a lot of these certain people, because the shots that humans were given, some of it, was cancer-laced, build super cancers, some with a virus just to kill people. Some of it was laced, that was coated with a certain nanotechnology that can amplify visions, even hearing things, telepathy. People began to experience that. And then tests that were done with that through the military, testing people inside the Middle East, to hear the voice of Jesus, these different things. There was tests going on. So these vax that went out, there was many different forms of it. And say close to 80% was just saline. It was just salt water. It was empty. But there was a huger part that was connected to different operations. So now these people that Trump is taking into the United States, there's a decoding that's happening. And they're being allowed, like I was giving the videos last year, that military is protecting them, a safe passage into the United States, safe pathways into Russia, from China, people going that way. So that's kind of what's happening right now is this project. This project, what people call Project Bluebeam, the the alien invasion, the technology behind it. It's already being used for different things. It was already happening, and it was already kind of growing. Now people are kind of reversing the technology. People want to expose the technology. So we're inside of this huge, gigantic parts of different disclosure. Not just alien disclosure, not just pedo disclosure, satanic disclosure, the disclosure of food, poisons in our food disclosure, but even to powerful technology being used against humans, connected to all of this disclosure stuff on the dark side of technology, connected to an interface that connects to the body. There's a powerful disclosure behind that's taken place. So I want to bring this video forward because we're going to end up going to a lot of crazy stuff that people are going to learn about, shocking things that people are going to learn about. It's all for a reason, but you have to understand there is a divine side of waking up humans, a divine side, a divine side of God giving free will, and that free will creating a dark energy, and that dark energy creating a systematic plan that was wiping out people, killing people. So in a way, God connecting that free will for a reason that's taken place. So I know a lot of people have questions on that, but I gave you a huge, gigantic piece of information when I told you why God creates things, why God creates experiences through the creation of life, and how God really wins. Really, that the real truth is that everything is infinite. That's the real ultimate story of the Great Awakening that the military is eventually going to lead towards. These operations of the Great Awakening with what's happening. And we're in for a huge, gigantic ride with what's going to be uncovered with the election stuff, because the election is one of the biggest pandemics. It puts powerful people into government positions that protect the pedo operations, the blackmail operations, the money laundering operations, the full corrupt operations. The people who create the wars vote for wars. So we're at this stage. Everything's in stages. And I want to give you guys this information, as this information is probably going to come out from a lot of different sources slowly, about powerful mind control. Very powerful stuff connected over to the shot, the jab. So I could talk on about this for a lot of things connected to humans right now. People who took the jab, and some of it is laced with this powerful technology. And that's why people that died during the pandemic, certain cemeteries, there was Bluetooth energy that was connected to the bodies. That wasn't conspiracy. That was actually happening. The body was emitting radio frequencies that computers, Bluetooth technology was, popping up, and they were actually connecting to. So, anyways, that's what I want to give you on this front. That's very important, what we're going through. Have your faith, have your faith, have your spiritual armor on. You guys are learning a lot about everything, and I just want to say thank you for being a part of this community. Thank you for sharing the information out there of what was happening, and what's going to happen inside the Great Awakening. I just want to say that from a lot of people, even from Gene Decode, giving a lot of information out there. I'm very thankful for that, because I'm not a public person, and I appreciate someone to share important knowledge in many different forms out there, and I really appreciate that. Then all the way to a lot of different people, and then including you, helping to save your friends' lives, your family's lives, and as much as you can, helping the world. Even if you're a quiet person, that vibration of the spirit of prayers, it's a holy energy. It's a sacred energy that moves, and it connects to a conscious awakening. So I just want to give you guys this information. Okay, I'll see you guys on Monday.
Join our Patreon or Spotify channel and get the real weekly updates.